Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for supporting IBC and coming to see us at the RIDE Amsterdam and supporting the IBC Accelerator's Media Innovation Program. My name is Mookie Callahan. I am the Innovation Co-Lead of the Accelerator Program, along with my colleague Mark Smith, who you just saw here. We've been working on these projects for coming up to 6 to 7 months now, so we're very proud to be showcasing the final results of some of these proof of concepts. And the whole concept of the Accelerator Program is about open collaboration. It's about working together. It's about discovering these solutions in a fast-track hackathon-style pace, where the challenges are set out at a Kickstart day, and consortiums are formed through some open calls. And once the groups are formed, it's a mad sprint to develop some of these solutions. But it's important to remember everyone's working together and learning together and in an open knowledge forum. And you're not set out to boil the ocean necessarily, but explore some of these solutions together. So without further ado, I'm super excited to showcase to you today the Cloud Localization Blueprint project that's come together to look and explore best practices for building cloud-based media supply chain and the localization for the entertainment industry. So I will introduce our panel and I will get cracking into it. So we've got Rob Delft, the Chief Executive Officer at Fabric. That's it, round of applause. Keep it going, keep it going. Yeah. Ryan McKay, the Specialist Solution Architect at AWS. We're a little bit all over the place. Alexis Martinez, VP of Research and Innovation on your SDI. James Crossan, the SVP of Head of Global Governance. I like this morning party, people. And the lovely and wonderful Kara Beckett, the Chief Revenues Officer of Rightsline. This is great. Can you guys just come to every session? That would be fantastic. So let's get stuck into it. Rob, you've got the controller down there. Like we've been describing, the Accelerator is, lots and lots and hundreds of applications come in. IBC whittles down to around a dozen to 15 that get presented at Kickstart Day in London, normally in February. And from those projects, normally around 6 to 8 go through. And you've seen the 8 right here, feet away. So let's talk a little bit about the origins of this project and how it came about, and tell us the beginnings.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, before I start, I do need to do a huge thank you for my team and how much work was put into this, and for all the partners here, because I think that when I think about the origin story of where this came from, I don't think any of us estimated how much work it would actually be to get us to where we're at, which has been an amazing journey. It's been fantastic. So when Robin and Andrew brought up this opportunity, one of the things we were looking at is, what do we hear where there's the most friction in the supply chain today? And it kept coming back to the localization process. So of course there's different pieces where information's not being shared or there's not visibility. But when it came to actually the localization workflow, it was the place where there's the most hiccups or the most kind of unknowns, right? You're getting to the end of something, you have a delivery that's going through, and you don't know if a component is ready or you don't know something's done. So from there, we really took our time to think through how we can improve that, and what partners in the supply chain, and I hate to use the term end-to-end supply chain partners because it's everywhere in the show, but
you just said it, so.
I broke my own rule. There you go. Is which partners do we have common customers with, and we could start to link together the pieces to come up with the blueprint, which really is, a fully rationalized set of tools in order to exchange data more efficiently, and that's where it started. So that's really the origin story.
And you guys have done an amazing job presenting this project, and with lots of great supporting materials. So I think without further ado, let's roll VT. If you don't mind clicking to the next slide, you've got a great video.
Absolutely. So one thing I'd say to preface this, when you bring together such amazing vendors in the space, we all have our own viewpoint on how things should work. And it's been an awesome experience getting to know everyone and sharing ideas, and ultimately we'll come out stronger.
The Cloud Localization Blueprint is an interesting collaboration of a number of technology vendors and some media companies who are coming together to define a set of best practices and a reference architecture for moving a media supply chain for content localization into the cloud.
There have been a wealth of new products and technologies that have come out into the space, but there hasn't been a welding of all these new products and technologies to create a cohesive workflow.
The blueprint's an idealized workflow that gives us the ability to plug in various best-in-class vendors and also to trigger off work orders to make the extra content that we require to service deals.
It's a really exciting way that we're seeing multiple vendors and partners and champions coming together to really show how to put best in practice architecture in place.
The Cloud Localization Blueprint is an important industry collaboration because it's bringing together a number of vendors who have to have products that work well together in order to make content localization supply chains more efficient.
I mean, it's called on demand for a reason. And it's our job as industry professionals to come together and really fine-tune this delivery process so we're able to get the content to the viewers as quick as we can.
The only way to solve problems that affect all of us is by getting everyone together to collaborate and come up with solutions that work for everyone.
We're essentially showing you step by step, okay, this is a best in practice way of creating this supply chain from start to finish.
The existing legacy-based localization process is quite messy. It's been described as being spaghetti-like, and it leaves quite a lot to be desired, which in short means it's ripe for an automated cloud-based solution, hence the Cloud Localization Blueprint.
Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Is there anything else you want to touch on that? Like, once you saw the team started to grow, were there any point at the beginning of the project where like, we're missing this spoke in the wheel we could use with this, or have we thought about this?
Absolutely. There's a whole bunch of holy crap moments that went along the way, but I think that's what makes the output that much more valuable. We hit some pitfalls. We were like, where are we going to get this data? The team did grow. The number of partners did grow because we realized, oh, wait a second, we need to include LMT from a language code perspective, or another vendor in the process. So it evolved, and I think the end result shows the level of thought that went into how the process came to be.
Excellent. I'm going to pass that clicker to James now, who's going to
give us
the power. James, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, let's just keep we're just never going to leave the stage. I think we just keep the party going all the time.
Keep applauding.
Exactly. As from a champion point of view, let's talk about that, because you're looking at lots and lots and lots and lots of ways to improve your business, and the way that things do evolve with technology and what you need to be doing with your supply chain. So let's give us a little bit of highlights from your point of view as a champion on this consortium.
The number one highlight is just this coming together in the first place. So this group of people taking a problem away and coming up with what they come up with is absolutely amazing. So usually we try and sit in between all these partners and vendors who are all great, and we try and stitch things together. So that was a huge win. I mean, for us, and all our companies like us are merging and getting bigger, the landscape gets more complex. And when we get into that, all the words there in that video are amazing, but localization is a people-based process, and with people-based processes, things can change and move and go wrong. So really kind of this group understanding those nuances and for the different types of content and different workflows, it's been amazing. And the end-to-end thing, I was going to try and avoid saying it, but you can't avoid saying it. It is interesting where people do try and come up with something that says this is going to work end-to-end, but actually what this group does is really understand the nuances of the space that they're in, and I think they've put something together that's pretty unique, actually.
And when you found some of these solutions coming together, what was going through your mind when you started to see the spaghetti unravel a bit and then reassemble?
Yeah, I mean, when you see the spaghetti for the first, I live in the spaghetti, like for my sins.
It could be for silly,
Yeah. When you see it written down, you do kind of sit back and go like, why are we doing this, right? So I think starting to see the collaboration was amazing. I think starting to see conversations happening naturally by groups getting together, which usually is, to be fair, people like us sat in the middle trying to bring things together, actually. I think that was quite transformative to see.
Exactly. And I think you've got the power of the clicker, and you have a few slides to talk through here. So
cool. So really for us, this is a workflow in its purest simple sense, but it's a workflow that nobody has really sort of sat back and thought about end-to-end, what we really get from this is the end-to-end visibility. And when we get into the technical levels, that visibility is about stitching together like our content pipeline, the work that needs to be done from a localization perspective. We get into the nitty-gritty of linking IDs and all that kind of stuff, all the stuff that goes horribly wrong when we try and execute this workflow. And for us, really, it's about matching that pipeline and demand with our content and all the different types to the workflow that's going to actually execute and deliver on that. And then we really giving like us as a company, and particularly my, I guess, clients and stakeholders across the company, surety of when things are going to happen, when they're going to arrive. And when we sort of switch this, I mean, most people in this room will know, like workflows around TV, very well bedded in and established. Workflows around streaming and direct to consumer, less so. So when we take that aspect into account and the scale, hitting day and date globally, binging like gazillion episodes of a certain show, we don't have the luxury of going, yeah, we don't really know where that localization is, or we don't know where it's going to happen. So really giving us, like, stitching these processes end to end together for us has been very transformative, and really giving us data and a view to actually drive and make decisions has been pretty huge.
Fantastic. And what's so special about this group is not only we're exploring the solutions and what is the innovation around these solutions, you've gone and made a result of a lot of these solutions, which is really fantastic. So the Cloud Localization Blueprint as a platform, if you will, you've made a microsite, and I think this is a little bit of a couple screenshots to show an example of the user journey. So can you please explain the user journey and talk us through a little bit of this?
Mm-hmm. So the user journey, if you think about this, I mean, the user journey is so fragmented, and it naturally is. You're never going to have one group of users executing this space. We start all the way up front with our people making creative and programming decisions. We make a huge amount of content, but we also buy a huge amount of content. So we start right up there with the rights and what we're actually going to go and acquire and make, and the whole sort of intellectual property side of things. That we're really keen as an organization to actually use that more to drive that pipeline and flow of work. So that's right at the start of the process. Then when we get into the depths of the process, we really need some insight from those rights in terms of the types of content that is being made, and then hence the type of localization we're going to do to that content. So, for example, the way we want to localize a theatrical feature versus the way we want to localize a made-for-TV telenovela versus a unscripted documentary. These are very, very different ways of treating that content. So at the core, it's all a workflow, but at the base, it's driven from that starting point of the rights, the type of IP that's being made, and really how we direct and guide that through our multiple partners, many in this room. Then once we have that plugged together, we then, if we start with the rights view, we start with the direction of the work in the right order, then it's all about tracking and visibility. And we all know that things do go wrong, especially in people-based processes. So it's about having enough time to react to change as well through the process and the workflow. And we all know, like, in human-based industries and capacity challenges in the market, we need to make decisions well ahead of time so that we can actually pivot our business and make sure that content lands in the right place at the right time.
Fantastic. And I love these workflow diagrams. You can look at it all day and just go, you want to make things too. So I'd like to go to you, Ryan. Welcome. Welcome to IBC. And just if you go to the next slide and pass the clicker over, I'd love to hear from your point of view, from a participant, like
to this one,
thinking about the integration or this.
Yeah. So I think what you see here on screen speaks to a lot of what Rob and James just talked about, right? Was usually these companies historically have had to sit in the middle of all these workflows between their vendors and their service providers to stitch everything together. And that works well if you're talking about one or two products or services. You saw on one of the previous slides, there's a lot of arrows. And so that problem compounds over time. And what we've demonstrated here is how instead of point-to-point integrations between partner products and services and stitching everything together, which becomes complex over time, we discovered we can put a middle layer in here, and we can use Amazon Event Bridge as a decoupling, and we can loosely couple all these services and products in our supply chain and our localization supply chain, and let the customer focus on what they want to focus on, media production and distribution and the localization process. Let partners focus on what they want to focus on, making their products great. And really, AWS does the undifferentiated heavy lifting of the integration process. And so that's what you see here. We've loosely coupled all the services and products in our supply chain. And that also speaks to the ability to monitor across the supply chain. So because we've got this data sharing across every system in our supply chain, we can also plug in monitoring UIs and things like that to see progress against our entire workflow.
Exactly. And we talked earlier about the synergies between these different workflows. So can you deep dive a little bit under the hood with that?
Sure. We working with the teams was absolutely fantastic. And we have what you see on screen is also a true best of breed in the market of vendor products and managed services. And so you see a lot of well-architected software products here where already using eventing and queuing and APIs to access all the functions of these services. So the integration process was really smooth. I think everyone was very aligned on what we were doing and how we were improving this by decoupling everyone's services in the supply chain.
Right, decoupling, not in the Chris Martin and Gwenny way. Just normal decoupling. Fine, got you. Thank you, Ryan. That's such a fantastic deep dive, and I'm glad this slide stayed on a little bit, lingered a bit, because there is so much to learn and understand. So once again, if you want to learn even more about this workflow, this stand for the Accelerator Zone is right here, like feet away. So the team are going to be happy to show you some demos and show a little bit how things work. So over to you, Alexa. Welcome. Welcome on your side. So we talked about localization.
Yes.
And these workflows too. So you can
so one of the things
on this, and you also have a
stay on
slide.
this one for a second, because one of the things that I like about this architecture is that, as you know, everybody's been saying, that it allows everybody to see the information they need to see by loosely coupling everything and having, you know, an event-driven architecture. And for us, there is a lot of collaboration that has to happen and creative work that has to happen within the localization process, but there is also then collaboration that has to happen with our client. And making sure that that interaction happens seamlessly, rapidly, is really important. And this is an architecture that lets us do that much more effectively.
Exactly.
Even as you mentioned, James, you know, you might do a certain process for theatrical localization, something else for television. The same architecture works. It lets us have a standardized framework across the board, but leaves room for the things that need to be unique and the little distinct pieces that need to change. And so from a perspective of, you know, a localization service provider, we have a lot of systems internally. There's a lot of integration already internally. And what this does is it provides kind of a wrapper or another layer that lets us expose all of that, you know, to make it more useful to our clients, but also to our partners, the rest of the supply chain, in a much more seamless way. So I really liked it. And it was a great time working with the team to actually build out a proof of concept to prove that this actually is a mechanism that can work, an architecture that can
exactly.
work.
And that's what these explorations are for. And it's good that there's been a sandbox and a playground to explore into it. So again, Alexa's going to be at the stand right here. Is there anything else further you want to touch on? Because I feel like I don't want to leave this slide just yet. I feel like there's a little bit more to unpack here.
Yeah, this slide kind of shows, you know, we have an entry point. Usually there's an order and there's media, but from that point, depending on what the need is, there are lots of actual different pathways that can happen. There's a lot of human interactions, human touch points that have to happen. Even though we are bringing more machine learning into our processes, there's still always a human element. There's a lot of creative work that has to happen, which is always a human process, as you said. And so making this pipeline more accessible is just to everybody's benefit.
Fantastic. I think we can make this a bit of our wallpaper when we go home, because this is a good architecture. I think we got one more slide, and James, you know, from the champion point of view, and you know, from a media company around, how do these localizations and how does that network flow help with your processes and you know, the ordering of planning ahead even?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially consolidating what is a very, very complex and kind of generally loose, fragmented process. I mean, for us to be able to place an order, I mean, even just the power of that very small statement sounds easy. Yeah, place an order and do some localization. I mean, literally in the spaghetti that was referred to, I mean, that is lots of people, lots of departments all doing that. So the ability to have that concept and have that order flow through, definitely a lot more data-driven and aware, which I love. So that order with regard to what type of content are we actually localizing to direct, to help us direct those orders in the right place. And then really moving away from, a legacy world, there's sort of almost fire and forget. The order's gone. Where'd it go? I don't know. Some people probably know in our team, but there's nothing kind of systematically telling us where it is and how it's doing, and is there a problem? And it's almost like you wait at the end of the pipe on the other end to see what drops out, right? And when you've got, a global day and date show or a theatrical movie or 200 episodes of something that's kind of binging on your product, you can't be waiting on the end of the pipe. You need to know exactly where that is in the process. So that's been very transformative, and I think what's interesting is the way it's been implemented and very open and certainly cloud-based and integration-friendly means, I hope that we can bolt other things onto this as well and really expand this out. So.
Exactly. We're talking about the end of those pipelines, but let's talk about the front of these workflows. And we know RightsLine's been so integral to this project and the efforts that have been put into it. So tell us a little bit more about this integration, especially with like rights management and where RightsLine comes into play.
Yeah, well, RightsLine and rights management comes into play at the very beginning. And I think I guess maybe the exciting part of that is that means a deal's been done, right? Which I think is that's the goal. The goal is to get the content, to make the deal, to get that content to the audience and in the language that they'll consume it and that they'll enjoy it. And working with these colleagues, I think I have a kind of a unique perspective because I think I've worked for every aspect of this workflow in the end-to-end. I've worked at one end and the other end and the end in the middle and the in between. We all take our role very seriously, and we do our job. Our service or our platform or our software does the job. Exactly. And in this environment, we got to think beyond what we do, right? We got to really think about the end result, which is getting that content to that, to that consumer in that language where they can enjoy it. So it was nice to be able to think beyond it. But at the front of the front end, you can't be slow, right? You can't be the bottleneck.
So it's all in your head.
It's really, it really starts at the beginning. Having the information as a content owner or a content seller, knowing what you have, what you can do with it, what you can't do with it, and maybe the steps that you have to do in order to clear that content for that sale. That has to be so fast, so nimble, and then it needs to. When that deal is done and that data is available to pass. Yeah. And I love what AWS does in this. I think I was thinking about it as almost like a railroad, right? Like they're like the track that pulls the data through, and along the way you have all these stops, but everything has to be on a schedule. Exactly. And these systems have to fit together in order to do that. You can't have one part fall down. Yes. So it's been an honor to work with the different types of architecture, the different types of companies, but we've all, our systems are all built in a way that are interchangeable, and I think that's what brings the uniqueness to this, to this project.
Exactly, add some nimbleness and agileness. Yeah, and we are workflows a go-go in this deck, and I love this one too. Do you mind kind of telling us a little bit more about this process? Yeah, like I said, the create the deal, right? So in RightsLine, if you're the buyer or the seller, you're going to use this opportunity to query your data. In this case, it's in this case, it's millions of right sets, right? Yeah. And so being able to query that data and have that exposed in a very readable way is really important. And I think that's something we do really well at RightsLine. Most of the RightsLine users are going to be a sales team or a rights management team, but they're not necessarily data scientists or engineers. Right. So the presentation of that data and the ability to react to it or act upon it is really important. And once that deal has been done, in this case, Pokemon to Warner Brothers Discovery, that transaction is going to happen in RightsLine, and it's going to kick that off, and integrate seamlessly to Fabric, which is really the first stop once it leaves RightsLine. And there's a lot of symmetry between all of these different solutions that allow that data to be passed seamlessly. So, I love that RightsLine is at the front because I think it really highlights the importance of having that data
accessible, fast, nimble, reactable, and
setting the pace.
Yeah,
straight,
I mean,
straight
I've
in.
always said rights management is the unsung hero of the streaming wars. I mean, nobody's really like joining me.
We're
on
singing
that,
about
but-
you now, girl. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
I'm like, you get your Netflix because of me. Well,
Right.
not me, but
Right, exactly. So do we hear that? That's a hashtag for sure. That's it. Cool. All right, round of applause. That was a good one. That's a good one. Thinking around the collaboration that you've had with this diverse group, is there anything else that you think you'd be, oh, I wish we did that, or we could do this, or something that would be out of your comfort zone, perhaps?
I can't think of anything that was out of the comfort zone. I mean, I think we all work together really naturally. I think because of the best in breed technology, the best in breed service, I have a personal affinity to the SDI IUNO team. It's one of the places where I started my career, and I see so many of my
Group hug later.
friendly
Group hug
faces.
later.
But I did, in talking through the workflow, to be able to highlight localization is just, it's so important because many of us, and I'm from like the Midwest of America, right?
Same, honey. Probably the farm opposite the road. It's fine.
And until I started working in localization, I don't think I understood the impact that it has to people's enjoyment, their lives, the content we bring them. When when you want to watch something not only in your own language, or you want to enjoy something presented in your own language, but from another from another country. It's just I lived in Poland for a little while. And I don't think I truly understood how important localization was until I lived in another country. And this process of taking localization from the beginning to the end and getting it done efficiently, that should not be the bottleneck either.
Right.
You're the only process that you said. In this, it's the human process. It's the creative process. Mm-hmm. So if the technology before and after can facilitate the ability to do the best possible job, to get the best possible dubbing or the best possible subtitles, actually makes a difference to Warner Brothers Discovery and Pokemon to have their content represented appropriately and in its best form to their audience.
Thank you so much. And again, it's been amazing to have you as part of this group, as with everyone else in this consortium. But let's now get to the nitty gritty, Rob. You've got the clicker. You're in control. Let's talk about the cloud localization blueprint. I feel like a rapper soft shoe coming on from you.
Yeah, I'm going to get up and do a little dance. So we're putting all this thought leadership together, and not just thought leadership, right? So this is where I have to give tremendous kudos to AWS and Ryan specifically for pulling together a lot of the flows. And,
you can go now. And that's it. It's fine.
and actually making it work, right? So when we look at these workflow diagrams and everything else, all the software, the vendors that are represented in here, we do adhere to those modern architecture standards. So there's stuff that is transferring data from one system to another, and it can be implemented. So where did we go in terms of documenting this? How does it live on? What's the output of this great collaboration other than we all really like working together? We created a microsite, or actually it's really just a website, at cloudlocalizationblueprint.com. It is spelt both ways. It's got a Z and an S, just
for localization, maybe.
And it goes to the same place, just for localization. We localize the URL, but that's not all. So
sit down, people. There's more.
Just hold on to your hats. So as we get in there, by the way, you can go to the site and you can register. It is a username password because it is an industry solution. But when we look down, we've got our different work streams highlighted. So I think I don't want to put words in Tunjai's mouth on our team, but when we started this, we thought we were going to create one big workflow. It's too complicated, right? So what we did is we broke it down into the component parts, which we categorized roughly as the deal, title, and registration. So deal being the rights line piece of it. We've either acquired something or we sold something somewhere and we got to deliver some assets. And the title registration piece of it, that's where we get into Holly Choi and IDER to combine the unique identifier that's going to flow throughout the process and in fact makes a lot of these things possible as an underlying technology. And then from there, we go into the assets and orchestration. So, one of the things that, Fabric brings to the table here is, okay, great, we know we have a deal, we're acquiring something, or we're selling something. This is the title, here's all the metadata around it, but what are we missing? So like, we have French assets, but we don't have the French metadata, or we need an alternate language track in this piece of it. So that's more the identification level. So we're saying, okay, great, in order to fulfill this, we have now decided we need to create this dub. From there, it's into ordering and localization. And in this blueprint, the nice part here and the way it's organized, which, again, I'll thank another member of the team, Mr. Tucker here, who spent the last 2 weeks of his life like really grinding through all this, is whatever you're interested, you can go into the component piece. So then we go through ordering, localization, and then the video analysis and compliance editing. And so in each one of those, and I'll just continue on here, we go into an example of the workflow. So this is an example of the assets and orchestration piece, all the different components that are involved, the data models, the underlying taxonomies, so the IDERs or the LMT codes that are being used, best practices around coding methods and the components used from AWS. Included within here are workstream process diagrams. So what happens, what gets triggered next, what piece of information flows into what box, and within this we've got screenshots of the various applications, technology, again to just walk the users through, or our industry group through, how it all works together. And I do want to, as I'm going through this, I'm constantly reminded that like this wasn't just a thought exercise. The stuff that you're seeing in here works and will live on and will continue to iterate, and we can implement, which is the most exciting piece for me, obviously. I spoke a little bit about codes and standards, but getting into like how the glue, if you will, that underpins this works. Then down to, there's screenshots, there's videos, it's very multimedia driven. And included, which I think was, a big part of coming here as an accelerator program, is to figure out, okay, but why? We all know that the problem is difficult, or we identified that early on, but what are the real benefits that come out of it? There's a cost to do this, there's an operational change management component, like why are we gonna go out and get it done? We go through the benefits, and it's all there, that will live on, as things are added to it. So that's the work product that I can thank everyone on the team for.
Well, that deserves a round of applause. You can't keep applauding the whole entire panel and not applaud that one. But it's really great because, it is like part mad scientist, part science fair, part engineering, part creative. We're doing real-time game engine. We're doing new studios of the future, XR and 5G and spatial audio and everything. It's just so nice to see this end result that you are able to show and tell, and it's a good, tangible takeaway, and leading into that. So I think, again, applause for what you brought into it, and I think we're discussing what's next. Where are we going next? And Alexa, I know you used to be an air traffic, you used to be a pilot, so ground control to Alexa. Now, I don't know, what do you say when you're a pilot? You're cleared for takeoff.
Thank you.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm looking forward to in continuing in this is, really putting it into production implementation. I have a thing about language codes. I would really love to see LMT just get done. Let's just get it in place wherever we can, because that is another.
This guy's coming to every one of my sessions.
This is one of the things. Every integration that we do point to point is a negotiation, and language always ends up being part of that. But it doesn't really need to be. There is a standard, and it's a really good one, and it's extensible if we need it to be. So there are things like that. Being able to make IDER data, flow through the entire process is also something I'm looking forward to, and really seeing how we can provide integrations to more of our customers to streamline more of our content localization across the board by using this framework.
And Ryan, from your point of view, what would be the next step?
Sure. We absolutely have to drive a greater adoption of standards because, like everyone said, a lot of this is predicated on great ID structure and strategy. It is a data sharing challenge, and so we've got a lot of the integrations you can see over in the booth already rolling. And at AWS, we're customer focused, right? So we want to hear from our customers who are the other partner product services that aren't integrated yet, and who should we be looking at next to bring into this platform, this ecosystem, as well as, of course, enhancing the integrations we already have. So I absolutely want to take this into the future with more partners, and the more we can get customers adopting this architecture, which applies to the localization challenge you're seeing here today, but can also be used across the entire supply chain. We're just going to come out with a really great ecosystem that makes it easier for customers to build super complex supply chains across the board.
Fantastic. Really, really great answer. And I look forward to seeing that grow. And what are those next workflows? And Kira, from a RightsLine point of view, what would be the kind of ideal next step scenarios that are both realistic and maybe go a little bit blue sky thinking?
Yeah, I think that looking at, well, as we all said, having something in production.
Yes.
I think proving the ROI is really important in everything we do. Democratizing this, right, so that it's not
Exactly.
just the major studios that can bring this kind of thing to light, but that all content, buyers, owners, consumers can get the opportunity to benefit from a workflow.
Exactly.
And like you said, bringing in the other pieces. Working with architecture, exposing architecture that is interchangeable, interoperable. I think these are really important things. So next steps, I think, is just getting this into the world where people and customers can take advantage of it.
Right. And anything maybe in the next 10 years, like in 10 years.
Oh, sorry, I almost
Should we go to sleep?
Like 10 years? I mean, we're still trying to figure out how to facilitate fast channels. I mean, who knows what's next? Like,
It'll be the microchip in our eye.
Like, we'll just be like thinking of making content and it'll show up in 10 years. Who knows? No, I think technology service providers like RightsLine and the others involved in this are being we're being asked to be not only efficient, but ahead of the curve, to think ahead. And our software has to be adaptable. It has to be changeable. It has to be fast. It has to be able to handle the complexities and then look simple. So those are the things that we have to continue to strive for and bring to this project and everything going forward.
Exactly. And I think we've got cloud as the foundation here, doing what it says on the tin, as we say in the UK. 5G, things like that will change, and the speed and the low latency of technologies. So that's where, you talked about speed, you talk about, accuracy has to come with that speed.
Yeah,
though.
I mean, I think even when we talk about fast channels, and that's probably another panel going on right now somewhere else, but
it's next.
Yeah, but it's like the word fast is just inherent in what we do, and you have to technology. The service providers, we're not just vendors; we are partners, and we have to provide information accurately, quickly, nimbly, and interchangeably. It has to move from one to the other, and that's what needs to be demanded of all the partners that that the media companies work with.
100%. Thank you so much. And James, looking ahead in the immediate future, but really thinking from WBD.
I think echo many of the things that have been said. I think it's adoption, implementation, adoption. You then start to build up a framework and an ecosystem. I love what's been said around widening out to the wider partners. I think that's absolutely key. And this is not an invasive way of having partners interact with something like this. It's very, from what I see, very open. I think that's one. Someone said the ROI, which I believe in as well, is let's look. I truly believe this is it's already helping us, right? But let's look back at the ROI. How much is that helping us direct work to the right places, be more on time with our content, get better relationships with our partners? I think there's something in the editorial space that might be a good next step as well. So this is very workflow, and we need this. It's foundational level, but how we then sort of record and react to editorial decisions, I think at the end of the chain, I think is something that would be good to see over time. And then I think we talked about the human processes, so we have an amazing technology framework here to bolt those processes into, but I think as some of those processes, we're always going to have humans in there, but as some of those processes also can be more cloud-based, like the physical act of voice recording or translating. Those will move a little closer, I think, to the cloud as well, and I think that will really help make this more efficient overall.
Fantastic. So, and as a global media giant, you've got to be thinking in the future, and you've got to be thinking ways to improve.
We have to. I mean, and we talked about fast, and we've talked about streaming, and who knows what the next model will be, but like all these things demand that like our content is prepped, localized, wrapped in data, and that need is just growing, so they need to simplify this and have a tool and a platform is even more pertinent.
Exactly, and it's been fantastic to have you as a champion. So we're very, very happy, and hopefully we'll see you in the next year of the Accelerators. And Rob, back over to you. Let's the final closing words. Don't look to your right. There's no one over there to help you. I'm looking at you.
Amazing.
I saw, like, we have seen the success of the Accelerators, but we saw so many large media companies and studios coming by your stand, which is 2 feet away here. What's going through your mind besides, is it happy hour? Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Like, what's been going through your mind, especially with, where these opportunities lie?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a technologist at heart, right? And so the most exciting thing here is we've stood up what can really be called an MVP, where we're sharing data between the systems. I've always thought when we're tackling a hairy problem like this that's in the industry and things are going everywhere, the best way to tackle it is by working together with software vendors that are, kind of that best of breed. And I feel really proud that we've accomplished that and pulled it off. And it's certainly, I can't take credit for it. So it's been everyone that's been involved. The work product is fantastic. And when we look to the next steps, okay, so we have these components built, right? We can share data. It can go back and forth. We have this environment where you can test out your workflows. Well, let's start implementing that into real life. Right? The problems are there. The software products are sitting there to be integrated. And so the next step, and it doesn't have to be a big bang, right? The way that this has been laid out is, here's all the different workflows. Like, what if you just solved a couple of the pain points and then solved a couple more, and and on, and all of a sudden you're in this place where there's less friction, right? There's less viscosity in the supply chain of localizing stuff. So, that's my 2 cents. I've been honored to be part of the project, and I'm looking forward to not only supporting it, but helping it grow into the future.
Exactly, and I think you have an amazing consortium already. Are there any missing parts that you'd be thinking about for an invitation into the group?
Yeah, I don't think that it was ever meant to be a closed fence or a walled garden, right? It just isn't. That's not the nature of how we're going to work. One thing I would say is that every technology landscape for studios, entertainment companies is a little different. And so in that diagram, the one that we spent a fair bit of time on, where we had what did you call it? The railway, Kira?
Railroad track?
The GLR, the Great Localization Railroad.
The GLR.
It's a whole new URL we're going to have to put up. Is that the components that sit around the railroad, to continue the analogy, can be interchanged. It's like, here's a data exchange framework where we think you should always be using some common components like LMT or IDER, right? And here's the software vendors that we like you to be using. But if you're not, it's like, here's an ability to plug into others. And in that sense, it's really helpful for the industry to keep operating.
Exactly. So not only have you developed and successfully proved an MVP in a cloud localization blueprint, you've developed a railway system. And if you go on strike, then you're digging your own grave. So no more striking.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Thank you so much, everyone. My name has been Mookie Collin. I'm the innovation co-lead at the Accelerator Zone. This group has been fantastic. It's been amazing to have you on stage and part of the Accelerators. Their stand is literally 2 inches away. You can see live demos. The team is waving over there. So massive, huge round of applause, please. We got Rob, James, Alexis, Ryan, and Kira. My name is Mookie. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Mookie.